Okay, now does anybody remember what a centroid is?
The center part of the little.
Good. So it goes from the angle to your segment and cuts it in half, right? So if I'm looking for BF, okay, would it be 3 or would it be 5?
3.
Or 7?
3.
Okay, so it means that from the angle to your line segment, it cuts it in half. All right, so that's not it, because AE is 3.
Yeah, so then it's 5.
Everybody agree it's 5?
Yeah.
Good. It is 5. All right, so mid-segment of a triangle. There's a question like this on your final exam, or not your final exam, excuse me, your test. So it's a little difficult. Be careful. It's a segment that connects the midpoints of 2 sides of a triangle. So what you have to do is find the midpoint of 2 sides of your triangle, and it could be any 2 sides. All right? So FG and CD are going to be parallel. All right, we can find the midpoint formula to find F and G. Of course, it's in the picture already, but the way to do it is this. So midpoint formula is take your X values, add them together, divide by 2. Take your Y values, add them together, and divide by 2. So if I was looking at, for F, I'm looking at the midpoints of E and C. Okay, to find point F. So midpoint of E and C, well, E is located at -3, 4. And C is located at -3, so you're adding -3, and you're adding the -2. Now, you didn't have to put plus a negative, but I did that so that if you're looking back in your notes, you know that you always add. And then you divide by 2. All right, so -3 plus -3 is a -6 divided by 2, which gives you a -3. And the next one is a 4 plus -2. That's a -2 divided by 2. Excuse me, a +2 divided by 2, which is a +1. So point F should be located at 3, 1. And it is. It's by our picture, but not always is it there. And I would do the same thing to find the midpoint of ED. And we're going to call it G. So the midpoint of ED, which we're calling G, is located at, E is at -3 for your X values, and D is at +5. And your your Y values are +4, and another +4, and you always divide by 2. So -3 plus 5 is the same as saying 5 minus 3, which is 2, and 2 divided by 2 is 1. And then 4 plus 4 is 8, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. So point G is located at 1, 4. So those would be the midpoints of EC and ED. And then it wants me to show the midsegment FG that we just found, those points. Okay, that's how you find those points. It wants me to show that it's that the parallel line is half of CD. So I want to show that FG is half of CD. And the way to do that well, 2 things. We want to show it's parallel first, so let's do that. So to show that it's parallel, we need to find the slope of FG and the slope of CD. Does anybody know slope formula? Okay, you could, if it's graph for you, do rise over run, and that's quicker only if it's graphed. Okay, if not, your slope formula is the change in your y's
Yeah.
divided by the change in your x's. Do you remember that? Okay, that's the formula. But if it's graph for you, rise over run is quite quicker, a lot quicker, but not always is it graph for you. So we said FG, change in your y's. Well, F is the y value is 1 minus the y value in the g, and the x value minus the x value in the g. And then you just simplify it. 1 minus 4 is -3. -3 minus 1 is -4. Negative divided by negative makes a positive. All right, now remember, in order for things to be parallel, they had the same slope, right? Lines that are parallel have the same slope. You remember that? All right, so now we found the slope of FG. We need to find the slope of CD. Now, if you don't remember, C is located at -3, -2. And D is located at 5, 4. Is that good? All right, so slope, change in your y, -2 minus 4. All right, and then your x values, -3 minus 5. And you get -6 over -8. Negative divided by a negative makes a positive. 6 divided by 8 reduces down to 3/4. So the last part asks you to find the distance. Find that it's half the length of the other. And the way to do this is you got to use the distance formula. Remember the distance formula? You need to know this formula if you don't. It's your x's subtracted from each other, squared, added to the y values subtracted from each other, squared. And then once you find that answer, you square root that answer. Take the square root of it. So I want to find the distance of CD. Remember, we just had CD above it. So CD, -3 minus 5, square that answer, plus -2 minus 4, square that answer. All right, so I'm just going to write it out to the side here. You want to follow order of operations, which is parentheses, excuse me, exponent, and then addition. So -3 minus 5 is 8, and 8 squared is 64. And -2 minus 4 is -6, and -6 squared is 36. 36 plus 64 is 100. Somebody know the square root of 100? Very good. So it's 10 whatever units we're talking about. All right, so that's the distance from C to D. All right, now we're going to try the distance from F to G. Yes, it takes a little while to do all this. All right, so remember F and G we found to be -3, 1, and 1, 4. So -3 minus the 1, square it, plus 1 minus the 4, square it. All right, -3 minus 1 is -4. -4 squared is a positive 16. Add it to 1 minus 4, which is -3. -3 squared is 9. Add those together, you get the square root of 25. What's the square root of 25? Okay. I want to prove that FG is half of CD. Did I? Yes. All right. they're half. All right, I could prove it by saying this. Right? Because CD is 10 and half of 10 is 5. We're done. Is that okay? Long problem, lots of parts to it. All right, so usually when you get a problem like that, you're going to have several parts, or they're going to be 3 different problems. All right, next. Find the slopes of CG. We've done that. I just tried to give you breaks in to do it. All right, so the segment connecting the midpoints of the two sides, DE is always going to be parallel to AB if D and E are the midsegments of CA and CB. Okay, if that's the case, then we can always know that the midsegment is always going to be half of its parallel side. So whatever, if AB is 10, then DE is 5, right? Half of it. If DE is 6,